3 common mistakes with the left hook. Now, I was talking to an old student of mine once, and he was saying how he used to box, but then he quit because he hurt his shoulder hitting a heavy bag. And I was like, oh, well, explain to me exactly how you hurt your shoulder. He's like, well, I was throwing the hook and I was throwing it like this. And then when I hit the heavy bag, I tore up my shoulder. And I was like, oh, this is the very first mistake that I want to talk about. When you're throwing a hook, you want to make sure that it's a hook. Like you see how my shoulder completes a hook. Like it should almost look like a question mark, right? This is what I want to try and do. It should look like I'm hugging a tree, but with one arm. I don't want to do this, right? Where you see how I don't want to lead with my shoulder. So for those of you watching who do jiu-jitsu, I'm trying to do this when I'm attempting to kimura someone. I'm trying to break their shoulder. So I don't want to create that scenario for myself. What I want to make sure that my shoulder is covered in muscle, right? So what I tell my students is that I just like pretend to be a bodybuilder. See how I'm like flexing out? And I'm trying to become a bodybuilder, I'm flexing, and then my shoulder is covered with my pectoral and my anterior deltoid. So that way when I throw my hook, it is safe, my joint is safe. So that's the very first mistake I want to talk about. It's not leading with the shoulder. You want to actually always lead with the fist, right? Next thing is having your elbow up. So sometimes when we learn how to box, we always want to keep everything tight, right? Which is generally correct. We don't want to start throwing punches really big, wide, and open. So when coaches say tighten up, they mean to keep your hands and your elbows closer to your body. And generally that is correct. But here's a common mistake when we start to throw the hook, is that the hook looks like this. And you see how I'm hitting with a hammer fist. This is wrong. What I want to do is I want to make sure that my elbow is up so that when I'm hitting with the weight, with the mass of my 2 forearm bones plus my fist like this, right? This is critical so that way my hook is correct. The last thing I want to talk about, which is a common mistake with the hook, is my weight transfer. Because I'm throwing a hook, and a hook is just a closer range tool. Here's my jab, here's my right hand, but when I throw my hook, I'm right here, right? You see how my elbow is bent? Of course, it is a mid-range to close-range strike, but a lot of people think that the target is way out here. So what they'll do is they'll lean into it to try and reach for the hook, meaning that too much weight is on the lead foot. This is wrong. A hook isn't like this, where my weight is on my lead foot. I want a little bit more weight onto my back foot. So when I'm doing this, see, I'm turning my heel slightly so that way it facilitates me turning my hip and my shoulder. I am leaning my weight back a little bit onto my rear foot when I'm throwing that hook. So if I'm shadow boxing, I'm just leaning back a little bit, like maybe 2%. All right, so that's 3 common mistakes. There's lots of mistakes when you start to box and you really start to study the left hook, but those are the most common. You want to make sure that you're leaning with your fist, your shoulder is safe. You want to make sure that your elbow comes up. And you want to make sure that you're leaning back just a little bit on that left hook.